They told you that love would save you, that a woman's warmth could heal your wounds, that her embrace would silence the storms inside you. You believed it not because it was true, but because it was beautiful. She was the promised land, the divine oasis, the answer to your aching masculinity. He didn't shame them for wanting what they want. He simply exposed the lie you were raised on, that love is born from emotional honesty. But he knew. Love, real love, grows in the shadow of discipline. Not the kind that cages you, but the kind that carves you into something unshakable. She doesn't want the man who shows his heart too soon. She wants the man who guards it not to hide, but to honor its power. You think you're winning her by giving more, but she's watching what you'll still protect. The man who holds his line, who chooses his mission over her moods, that man is dangerous, not because he hurts, but because he cannot be moved. And in her bones, her biology remembers. That's the man worth surrendering to. Not the one who begs to be chosen. It's the one who chooses himself first. But Freud, that cold architect of the unconscious, saw something else entirely. He saw the shadow behind her smile. He saw that when a woman wants, she does not seek peace. She seeks pull, not comfort, but gravity. Her desire does not bloom in the light of devotion, but in the dark of resistance. She is not drawn to safety. She is drawn to danger specifically, the kind of danger that cannot be tamed, the kind that doesn't need her. And you, modern man fed on therapy, speak, and soft apologies, have no idea how far from her instinct you've wandered. You offer transparency and wonder why she pulls away. You offer softness and wonder why she grows cold. But it's not because you're bad, it's because you're too easy to hold. And a woman does not chase what she already possesses. She chases what she fears losing. You gave her everything, your heart, your loyalty, your presence. But in doing so, you made yourself predictable. Predictability kills mystery, and mystery is the soul of desire. Freud named it the repetition compulsion, the drive to relive not what makes us whole, but what breaks us open. She doesn't crave your comfort. She craves the chaos you survive. The core of you that refuses to bow when her moods shift, center of gravity she cannot shake, no matter how hard she tests your balance. That's what holds her, not your affection, not your apologies, your unflinching posture, your refusal to orbit her storms. You were taught to share every emotion, every thought, every vulnerability like a badge of honor. But she doesn't want a mirror of her softness. She wants a monument to your edge. She doesn't want you open. She wants you immovable. Not cold, but contained. And in that tension between what she can see and what she cannot reach, there lies her attraction. Freud didn't blame women for this polarity. You think she left because of what you did, but Freud would argue she left because of what you stopped being. You stopped being a force. You became a function, something that could be managed, predicted, emotionally formatted to fit the narrative she crafted. And once she can manage you, once she knows your pattern, she no longer desires you. Because female desire, its root is not built on access, but on altitude. You stopped standing tall. You collapsed into comfort. You became her emotional mirror instead of her masculine contrast. And what does contrast do? It sharpens, it awakens, stirs the unconscious. Without that edge, that unshakable frame, her nervous system forgets you. Not because she stopped loving, but because her instinct went silent. Her biology is not drawn to your openness. It's drawn to your restraint, to the man who can look at her beauty, her tears, her silence, and still remain grounded in something deeper than approval. That's not cruelty. That's structure. And without it, you fall. She doesn't test you because she's cruel. She tests you because her unconscious mind is starving for something real. You thought you could skip that transformation. You could trade truth for transparency and still be desired. But transparency without tension is just exposure. She doesn't want to see all of you. She wants to feel the parts you don't give away easily. Not secrets, but sovereignty. That's what ignites her. Not your backstory. Not your tears. Your posture. Your refusal to bend when she pushes. Not as a tyrant, but as a man who refuses to be emotionally conquered. So once you've been conquered, she can't revere you. If she can't revere you, she cannot surrender. Not her body, not her heart, not her soul. For a man who can say no without shaking, for a presence that doesn't ask permission to exist, You were told to be kind, to be soft, to be emotionally fluent. But no one told you that those traits, when not rooted in masculine sovereignty, become liabilities. She doesn't admire the man who bleeds on command. She admires the man who bleeds only for what matters. And she watches every gesture, every word, every flinch. Not to hurt you, but to see if you'll betray yourself for her approval. And if you do, the game is over, because now she knows. She owns your center. And once a man's center is up for sale, so is his identity. You don't lose her because you weren't enough. You lose her because you gave away the part of yourself that made you worthy in the first place. Freud called it sublimation, the process of transmuting chaos into creation, lust into discipline, hunger into purpose. And that is the very thing you abandoned. You mistook her silence for affection, her affection for love, her love for salvation. But it was never love. It was leveragely againstly disguised. Freud understood this long before your heartbreak taught you. You respond by giving more attention, more availability, more emotional transparency. Hey, but every time you do, she steps back. Not because she's ungrateful, but because you've become predictable. Freud knew that erotic love is not a moral transaction, it is an unconscious storm. And the moment that storm clears, the moment she feels you've been fully mapped, the desire dies. It's not her fault, it's nature. Biology does not desire what it can dominate. And by making yourself emotionally consumable, you offered her nothing left to yearn for. That ache she once felt for you. It was never about your kindness. It was about the mystery you abandoned, the sovereignty you forfeited. The masculine current she could once feel pulsing beneath your restraint now gone, hollow. He knew that the unconscious feminine doesn't seek partnership. It seeks polarity. The mirror shatters. You no longer see yourself reflected in her approval. You only see absence, emptiness. But that emptiness is your opportunity, because in it, something far more honest begins. The man you thought you were their one, stitched together by her attention dies, and in his place, the real work begins. It's not to get her back, not to win love, but to reclaim the self that never needed either. When you become the man who no longer orbits her emotion, something radical happens. You regain gravity. It's not to control her, but to stop being controlled. Because only when you stop being devoured by the feminine can you truly meet it. Freud didn't say this with hatred. He said it with clarity. Clarity is what you've avoided your whole life. But now it's here, and it's not soft. It's surgical. She doesn't truly want a man who folds into her softness. She wants a man who awakens her edge. Not through cruelty, but through calm, through presence, through power without threat. You keep asking, what did I do wrong? Freud would say, you collapsed the mystery. You surrendered your depth. A woman does not burn for a man she understands too well. She burns for the man whose presence she can feel but never completely consume, because that's what evokes her containment. Not in cages, but in codes. In principles. In the sacred geometry of a man who does not flinch. And now, you see her eyes no longer light up when you enter the room. You feel her growing colder, so now. She doesn't test you because she's cruel. She tests you because her biology is ancient, older than language, older than romance. They long for a presence, for a container strong enough to hold their storms without drowning in them. And when you react to every silence, when you unravel at every test, when you make her moods your compass, you lose that presence. You become navigated, not navigating. And she, no matter how much she says she wants sensitivity, feels the loss in her body. Her desire dies not because you were bad, but because you were bendable. That's what kills her attraction, not what you did, but what you couldn't hold. Because the man who cannot hold himself cannot hold her. She needed your edge, and instead, you gave her explanation. She needed your gravity, and you offered emotion. And now you wonder why she's distant, cold, and reachable. It's not her that changed. It's the orbit that collapsed. It's deep in her unconscious. She's searching for gravity. Not a man who begs, but a man who holds. She pushes, retreats, provokes not to destroy you, but to feel you. To feel whether your center bends or remains unshaken. And every time you flinch, every time you respond with apology, you confirm her deepest fear, that your strength was borrowed, not built. You think you're being loving when you explain yourself, when you plead, when you cry on cue. But she's not listening to your words. She's reading your spine. And when that spine collapses under her emotional weight, something in her retreats not because she wanted to leave, but because now she has to. She cannot surrender to what she doesn't respect. This is the paradox Freud tried to reveal, that women don't long for a perfect man. Desire doesn't live in comfort, lives in contrast. In the ache between knowing and mystery, between closeness and distance, the man who reveals everything too quickly, who exposes all his wounds without having first built a temple for them, becomes a mirror she can look through, not into. Transparency without tension is just vulnerability without voltage. Freud's mistake was never in diagnosing love as tension, it was in believing the tension could be resolved. It can't. It must be mastered, held, honored. The dance between the masculine and the feminine is not meant to end in stillness, it is meant to remain electric. And if you lose that voltage, if you stop dancing and start submitting, she doesn't feel safe, she feels smothered. Because a woman doesn't truly want peace. She wants the man who can remain peaceful inside her chaos. You thought she left because you failed to love her enough. But Freud would say she left because you failed to contain her. She didn't want your vulnerability. She wanted your restraint. Not at once. She wants to sense that you've seen yourself first. That you've even walked through your own shadows and made peace with the monsters she hasn't yet met. And that's where modern men are lost. We're told to confess before we conquer, to bleed before we build. And so we walk into love like children begging for affirmation, hoping our openness will earn us devotion. But Freud saw the error. He saw that love without polarity is just comfort, that the feminine docility bow to the man who weeps first, but to the man who remains when the weeping ends. And that's what makes you unforgettable. Not that you expose everything, but that you guard something. Something sacred, something untouched. A temple no woman can enter unless she kneels with reverence. Not because she's heartless, but because her instincts are ancient. She wants to find out if you are real, if your backbone is yours or borrowed. If your eyes can see through manipulation without rage, if your calm is earned, not performed. And when she tests you, when she withdraws, criticizes, lashes out, she's not hoping you collapse. She's hoping you won't. Because the man who remains centered in her storm becomes the only man she can trust with her surrender. Not because he controls her, but because he doesn't need to.
Ow.
That is the gravity she aches for.
Ow.
That is the safety no word can fake. When you become that man, not in theory, but in being, she will kneel, not to serve, but to rest. And in that rest, true love begins. A man who cannot regulate himself cannot be trusted to hold her chaos. And when you gave her your soul too soon, when you poured your longing into her hands like a boy showing a broken toy, she didn't feel compassioned. She felt command, not hers, yours, evaporating. Because desire does not ignite when everything is already surrendered. It flickers in the space where mystery lives. And mystery doesn't mean hiding. It means anchoring. It means she cannot reach the bottom of you. That no matter how deeply she stares, there's a silence in you that doesn't beg to be understood. That unshakable silence is the only place she can safely fall. You thought emotional honesty was the answer? You thought love meant transparency? But she doesn't want to see all of you. She doesn't want to destroy you, brother. You say she stopped loving you, but maybe she never loved you. Maybe she loved the performance. It's the pliable version of you who bent at her moods, who leaked emotion on command, who mistook her tests for tenderness. That version felt like safety to her ego, but like death to her desire. Because no woman can surrender to a man she can script. No woman stays in love with a man who becomes a mirror of her own chaos. You weren't her lover, you were her echo. And when an echo stops offering resistance, it disappears. This is the bitter truth Freud knew, that love cannot survive when one party is consumed. And modern men starved of guidance confuse self-erasure for romance. But what you gave her wasn't intimacy. It was access. And she used that access the only way her nervous system knows how, to test whether your identity had a spine, or just softness in disguise. And what happens when the test fails? She goes cold, detached, resentful. And you, still caught in the myth of emotional honesty, try harder. By having a mission she cannot touch. By walking a path where her gaze is optional, not oxygen. Freud called it sublimation, the transmutation of your primal drives into something sacred. When you sublimate your hunger into creation, into discipline, into legacy, you stop being needy and start becoming magnetic. Not because you beg less, but because you need nothing. And that, to a woman, is the one thing she cannot fake, cannot control, cannot look away from. Because in a world full of men who orbit her emotions, the man who orbits nothing but his purpose becomes a gravity she cannot escape. You bleed more, you open wider. But she's not reading your openness as courage, she's reading it as collapse. Because beneath all her language, all her social conditioning, her body is listening for one thing. Can this man remain intact while I unravel? Not fix, not soothe, hold. And when you can't hold her wildness without dissolving into it, she knows this is not a man I can follow, so she distances. Not to hurt you, but to return to safety. Because no matter what she says, a woman will always run from a man she can emotionally conquer. You keep asking how to make her stay. Oh, that question is your first mistake. You do not become irresistible by being understood. You become irresistible by being undefinable. She didn't betray you. She revealed you. The moment she stopped pretending, the mirror shattered him. All that was left was you, standing in the wreckage of your own emotional dependency. A man stitched together by fear and validation, playing the role of partner, while secretly auditioning for worthiness. And now that the role has ended and the audience is left, you are finally alone. Alone with the one truth no one dares to tell you. You were not rejected. You were revealed as incomplete. Because no woman, no matter how nurturing, how loyal, how gentle, can fix the man who uses her to avoid himself. You thought love would save you, but Freud knew better. The empty space where a sovereign man can finally be built not in reaction to her love, but in pursuit of his own becoming. Freud didn't tell men to hate women. He warned them not to worship, because the moment you place a woman above your mission, above your spine, above your sense of self, do not rise into love. You fall into orbit. She may kiss you there. She may adore you there. She will never kneel to you there. Because only a man who commands himself can be trusted to hold the world she hides beneath her skin. He said love without power is not love. It's regression. It's a child reaching for the mother that never returns. And you made her your savior, your approval, your permission to matter. So when she left, it wasn't just a breakup. It was an existential collapse. Guys, she didn't just take her affection with her. She took your identity, the one built entirely in the shape of her gaze. This is why you suffer. Not because she stopped loving you, but because you were never truly there to begin with. You were a performance, projection. But this isn't tragedy. This is rebirth. It's because in the rubble of that illusion, something sacred remains. The silence, the stillness. So now the question becomes, who are you when no woman is watching? Who are you without her warmth, without her validation, without the illusion that you are lovable simply because someone needed you? Because from that hollow space, something unshakable can be built, not out of need, not out of performance, but out of discipline, direction, and depth. You must become a man whose heart beats not for affection, but for alignment. A man whose presence is not given away like a discount, but earned through fire. And when she returns, and she will, they always do, it won't matter. Because the version of you she once knew no longer exists. That boy, that pleaser, that emotional beggar, he died in the silence she left behind. And what rose in his place is not a man who needs her, but a man she cannot shake. Most men never find out. They run. They find another face to worship, another hand to hold, another feminine softness to crawl into and hide. And if love finds you there, good. But if not, you are no less whole, because the mission was never to be chosen. The mission was to become, and now you have. But not you. Not anymore. Because once you've seen the architecture of your own collapse, you can't go back to ignorance. Freud didn't give us comfort, gave us confrontation, the kind that tears the mask off your romantic delusions and forces you to face the man beneath them. And if that man is hollow, let him be hollow. You were not born to orbit her. You were born to build something eternal inside yourself.